the mid-20th century, in the windswept plains of New Mexico, a name imposed itself like a seal of fire upon the birth of human America: Clovis. The word echoes in lecture halls, runs through the pages of textbooks, imprints itself on maps and minds. Clovis is not just a site, it is a horizon, a boundary set in time, an origin. At Blackwater Draw, near the small town of Clovis, the first excavations of the 1930s brought to light stone points like fossilized lightning bolts. Long, slender bifaces, clean lines, and, in the middle of the blade, a deep flute cut with icy precision for hafting the weapon onto a wooden shaft. These fluted points become the fingerprint of a people. The industry is of stone, but it speaks like a clear voice across the millennia. Everywhere, in layers dated by radiocarbon, the same window repeats itself. Between 13,200 and 12,800 years before present. The calibrations adopted in the 1990s and 2000s translated into 11,500 to 10,800 BCE. This range becomes a sacred frontier. Above it, known history. Below it, the supposed silence. Blackwater Draw opens the way. Other places, like echoes across the vast continent, repeat the pattern. Dent, in Colorado, reveals the remains of giant animals marked by human blades. Leonard and Naco, in Arizona, show the alliance of stone and blood in the hunting of large mammals. At Galt, in Texas, the density of tools attests to intense occupation. Everywhere, the same flutes, the same bifaces, the same mastery of chert, flint, rocks carefully chosen. Little by little, a model emerges. The ice of the last glaciation retreats. Between the Laurentide ice sheet to the east and the Cordilleran to the west, an ice-free corridor opens, running from the north to the heart of the continent. Through this narrow passage, researchers imagine, groups coming from Asia cross the Bering Strait and descend toward the plains, carrying freshly invented Clovis points. They cross rivers, follow herds, leave their weapons in still fresh sediments. In Pennsylvania, in a rock shelter named Meadowcroft, an archaeologist, James Adovazio, labors to read the memory of the sediments. Starting in the 1970s, layer after layer, he discovers stone artifacts, traces of fire, organic samples buried in deep stratigraphy. When the dates come in, they strike like a muffled explosion. 16,000, 19,000 years before present, according to some measurements. If this is true, humans tread these lands well before Clovis. But the community hesitates. It sniffs the air of the site like a cautious hunter. Criticisms arise. Possible contamination of samples by more recent charcoal. Intrusion of materials through cracks in the rock. Papers are published in American Antiquity, in Current Anthropology, in Quaternary Research. The purity of the dates is debated, the innocence of the layers questioned. Meadowcroft becomes an arena. The site challenges Clovis, but its challenge is wrapped in doubt. Farther south, in the wetlands of Chile, another front opens. At Monte Verde, under the direction of Tom D. Dillehay, excavations reveal not only stones, but fragile imprints of daily life. Plant remains, structures, wooden planks, traces of occupation. The dates converge on an ancient age, around 14,500 years before present, calibrated. Again, if this holds, Clovis is no longer first. The controversy swells. Skeptics do not yield. But in 1997, a panel of experts from the Society for American Archaeology travels to Monte Verde. They observe, discuss, verify. Then they render their judgment. The site is solid. The pre-Clovis occupation is real. The shockwave spreads. The wall of Clovis First does not yet fall, but it cracks. On the Atlantic coast in Virginia, Cactus Hill adds its voice. Levels located beneath more recent horizons yield artifacts that seem older, dated to around 15 to 18,000 years before present. Researchers scrutinize the stratigraphy. Are there mixtures, slumps, intrusions? The debate flares up again. Nothing is simple. Nothing is definitive. There, in the heart of Bell County, the land folds into alluvial terraces sculpted by patient waters. Buttermilk Creek winds like a clear vein, a tributary of the Lampasas River, itself carried toward the vast Brazos Basin. Near Salado, the hills bear, invisible to the naked eye, a memory of flint and human footsteps. Central Texas has long attracted archaeologists. The region is rich in lithic raw materials. Edwards chert of high quality crops out in the landscape. Its clean fracture and fine texture make it a favored material. Prehistoric groups from millennia came here to gather what they needed to fashion their tools. Paleo-Indian sites abound here. At Galt, not far away, Clovis tools lie by the thousands, packed together like stars in an overfull sky. Later industries trace out a long sequence of occupations, from the Paleo-Indian to the Archaic. In this setting, on a terrace of Buttermilk Creek, mapping and surveys take place at the end of the 20th century. Salvage archaeology, regional programs, academic curiosity. People map, test, and collect the first clues of ancient occupations. The stratigraphies already yield Paleo-Indian and Archaic traces. The maps blacken with dots. Central Texas whispers that it still holds more. The site that will soon bear the name of Debra L. Friedkin takes shape over the course of this work. Officially, the place receives this name in homage to a landowner or to a person tied to the land. But what matters in the eyes of the researchers is not the name. It is the promise inscribed in the terrace, between the grains of sand, the gravels, the thin layers where the traces of centuries fit together. At Texas A&M University, at the Center for the Study of the First Americans, an archaeologist already stands at the forefront of the debates, Michael R. Waters. For years, he has been scrutinizing the chronologies of peopling, Paleo-Indian sites, the dates that make paradigms wobble. His articles appear in Science, in PNAS, in other heavyweight journals. He knows the power of models and the fragility of the evidence that supports them. Around him, a team gathers. Geoarchaeologists, specialists in sediments, stratigraphy, dating methods. Some, like Thomas W. Stafford Jr., work with him on radiocarbon ages in other contexts. Others are experts in optically stimulated luminescence. They know how to read in the quartz grains the years that have piled up since their last kiss of light. All shoulder the same burden, to prove with relentless rigor what intuition or hints suggest. Beyond the university walls, federal programs and university funding support the quest. The National Science Foundation backs some of Waters' projects. The budgets are not unlimited, but they suffice to open up the earth, to set up excavation tents, to pay for delicate analyses. A heavy sense of expectation hangs in the air. The scientific community now knows what is needed to definitively shake Clovis First. A North American site, not just South American. A crystal clear stratigraphy without mixing. A level clearly situated beneath Clovis with numerous coherent artifacts rich enough to speak of a complete industry, not just a few stray flakes.
multiple independent dates that corroborate one another. Radiocarbon, OSL, everything science can provide. It also has to be a place located south of the former ice sheets, in those regions that never sleep under kilometers of ice. There, the traces of the first groups can be recorded without being crushed by glaciers. Texas thus becomes a key area. Researchers project their hypotheses across time onto it. Coastal routes along the Pacific, or interior pathways older than the ice-free corridor. The answers may be hidden in these discrete terraces, in the silent bed of Buttermilk Creek. When the excavation program is truly set in motion at the Debra L. Friedkin site, the stage is already charged with tension. Waters and his team set up on the alluvial terrace. They know they are working on a deposit with multiple occupations. The levels are stacked like layers of a song long repeated. They must be distinguished, understood, dated. The methods are regulated like a liturgy, slow stripping, layer by layer, following the sedimentary levels. Each artifact is recorded in 3 dimensions, its exact position documented. At regular intervals, the team collects sediment samples. They will be analyzed in the laboratory. Geoarchaeology, grain size analysis, traces of bioturbation, everything is scrutinized. Opaque tubes collect the sands destined for OSL, protected from light like relics. Very quickly, a Clovis level appears. In the sedimentary matrix, the fluted points emerge, clear, undeniable. Flakes from napping, cores, bifaces complete the picture. Edwards' chert dominates, napped with the expected mastery. The technology matches what is already known from other sites. The same gestures, the same flutes, the same criteria. Clovis is indeed here, anchored in the Texan terrace as it is in the rest of the continent. Above the Clovis level, the excavations bring to light other, more recent horizons. Post-Clovis industries, late Paleo-Indian, archaic. Other forms of tools, other traditions, other histories. Time advances toward us, layer by layer. But it is downward that the gaze immediately turns. Beneath the Clovis level, buried in the terrace, lies a dangerous promise. If something is found there, it will have to be proven that it is older, that it is not an accident, that it has not slipped down from the upper levels. The trowels descend. The layers follow one after another. The team observes the stratigraphy, tracks the slightest disturbance.
Sedimentological analyses examine the structure of the deposits, the grain size, the presence or absence of holes, burrows, ancient roots. Any sign of mixing would be a mortal wound to the argument. Below the Clovis level, an archaeological horizon takes shape. The artifacts are not isolated. They do not appear at random. They form a dense, coherent assemblage tied to the same ancient surface. Above all, the stratigraphic analyses indicate no visible mixing with the overlying Clovis level. The layers are distinct, the interfaces sharp. The inventory grows day after day. More than 15,000 lithic artifacts soon feed into the records. Numerous flakes, evidence of intensive napping. Cores from which the blades were detached. Bifacial preforms, sketches of tools in the making. Long blades, retouched tools shaped for specific tasks. Here again, Edwards' chert dominates. The ancients exploit the same resource as their Clovis successors, but their gestures differ. For in this lower horizon, an absence speaks as loudly as a presence. No fluted point appears. No fluted point comes to sign the level with the name of Clovis. In its place, another way of napping can be read in the angles, the ridges, the striking platforms. The blade napping techniques,
the way of producing bifaces, of preparing preforms, all of this diverges from the classic toolkit of the overlying level. Waters and his team observe, measure, compare. The chaîne opératoire emerge. The prepared volumes, the way blades are detached, the methods of retouch, all indicate a distinct tradition. Neither a copy of Clovis nor a simple variation. A technological complex of its own. They call it, in their writings, the Buttermilk Creek complex. An earlier assemblage, rooted beneath Clovis, yet sharing with it the same chert terroir. The samples destined for optically stimulated luminescence head to the laboratory. There, in controlled darkness, the quartz grains are isolated, irradiated, measured. The equivalent dose is determined, the amount of energy accumulated since these grains were last exposed to sunlight as they were deposited in the terrace. The dose rate linked to natural radioactivity is calculated. From this, an age is inferred. When science delivers them, the results trace a new chronology beneath Texas. The sediments that contain the pre-Clovis assemblage yield OSL ages ranging from about 15,500 to 13,200 years before present, calibrated according to the study's methods. The majority of the artifacts cluster within an interval centered around 15,500 to 13,200 years. Their world is born, lives, and falls silent before the appearance of the site's Clovis level, before the classic chronology of fluted points. The geoarchaeologists then return to the stratigraphy with renewed precision. They scrutinize sedimentary structures, grain size distribution, traces of bioturbation. They search for evidence of a major disturbance that could have driven more recent artifacts downward. But the analyses converge. The levels appear stable. The internal structures of the sediments do not betray large-scale reworking. The pre-Clovis artifacts seem to rest where the hand that left them abandoned them. In March 2011, the journal Science opens its pages to Michael R. Waters' team. The article states, without ambiguity, the discovery of a pre-Clovis assemblage in Texas, with dates earlier than 13,000 years before present. The words are weighed, but the meaning is clear. Debra L. Friedkin, Buttermilk Creek, suddenly becomes a name hurled as a challenge to decades of certainty. The conclusions advanced by Waters and his colleagues are sharp. The site, they assert, provides solid evidence of a human presence in North America before Clovis. The abundance of artifacts, the clarity of the stratigraphy, and the consistency of the OSL dates support the claim. Furthermore, they suggest that the pre-Clovis assemblage might represent a kind of technological ancestor for Clovis industries. Both use the same chert, the same broad categories of bifacial tools. There are continuities, but also breaks. A possible thread stretches between the two worlds. The article does not speak into a vacuum. It fits into a broader movement of re-evaluating the Clovis First model. But its strength is that it offers what had long been awaited, a North American site, abundant, stratigraphically impeccable, where Clovis clearly rests above an older human horizon. The reaction is swift. In laboratories, offices, classrooms, the article is read. It is discussed. The scientific press publishes summaries. Science highlights it. Nature News covers it. National Geographic relays the discovery. Journalists describe men and women hunting in Texas 15,000 years ago. The news spreads like wildfire across the steppe. Among archaeologists, emotion is coupled with caution.
Many emphasize the importance of the number of artifacts, the beauty of the stratigraphy, but not everyone yields immediately. They call for independent verification. They question the reliability of OSL, the exact form of the assemblage. At conferences, at the Society for American Archaeology and elsewhere, debates sometimes grow heated, remain measured at other times, but do not stop. The criticisms initially crystallize around the dates. Optically stimulated luminescence is powerful, but fragile. Can we be certain that the quartz grains were indeed fully reset to zero at the time of deposition? Partial resetting, insufficient exposure to light before burial, and the age becomes muddled. Some specialists point to the margins of error, uncertainties about the dose rate, the possibility of slightly reworked sediments. In the specialized literature, articles dissect the protocols, compare methods, question the accuracy of the reported ages. Other criticisms concern the assemblage itself. The absence of diagnostic projectile points, those forms that immediately allow an industry to be linked to a tradition, troubles some. How can this pre-Clovis horizon be compared to Monteverde, to other proposed early sites? Where are the typological markers that stand out as signatures? Some wonder whether the technological distinction between the pre-Clovis level and the overlying Clovis truly marks a rupture, or merely a regional variation within the same broader trend. Waters and his team do not remain silent. They publish complementary work on the geoarchaeology of the site, detail the stratigraphy, further analyze the lithic tools. They present their results at conferences, respond to criticism in public discussions. They repeat their arguments, revisit the data. The structure of Buttermilk Creek is strengthened as it is attacked. Buttermilk Creek now fits into a constellation of pre-Clovis sites. It is compared to Monteverde II in Chile, dated to around 14,500 calibrated years. It appears that Texas and Chile speak of comparable ages, sometimes slightly older for Buttermilk Creek. Page Ladson in Florida, where human traces plunge beneath the waters of an ancient sinkhole, is also brought into line. Cooper's Ferry in Idaho and various Pacific coastal sites enter the debate with their own proposed occupations predating Clovis. Within this mosaic, Debra L. Friedkin holds a special role. It is one of the first widely publicized North American sites to present an abundant lithic assemblage, stratigraphically underlying Clovis, with systematic dating and a methodology laid out in detail. General syntheses, when they shake the Clovis First dogma, cite Buttermilk Creek as a cornerstone. The paradigm begins to give way under the combined pressure of these sites. In the specialized literature, a shift occurs. After 2011, synthesis articles no longer speak of Clovis only as a threshold. They now evoke a pre-Clovis model, or the possibility of multiple routes and waves of settlement. Science, Nature, PNAS, Quaternary International, and others welcome these new visions. The chapters of North American archaeology textbooks are rewritten. The pages that presented Clovis as the first humanity on the continent are modified, nuanced. Buttermilk Creek appears alongside Monteverde, Page Ladson, Cooper's Ferry. The landscape grows more complex. In this new order, migration scenarios must bend to the data. If humans were in Texas before the full opening of the interior glacial corridor, then the old single route model no longer holds. The coastal routes along the Pacific gain support. One can imagine groups following the shorelines, taking advantage of marine resources, bypassing the ice from the west. Other hypotheses evoke several waves, perhaps pre-Clovis groups biologically and culturally distinct from those who will later bear the Clovis signature. Or, on the contrary, an evolutionary continuity. Pioneers long settled there, whose technology gradually evolves toward fluted forms. North American lithic industries, in this light, are transformed. Assemblages once considered atypical, marginalized because they did not fit the Clovis mold, are reread with fresh attention. Researchers look for echoes of Buttermilk Creek in blades, bifaces, and reduction sequences. Comparative programs are developed. Napping gestures, core types, and preform structures are set side by side to weave or unravel links between technical traditions. In the field, in Central Texas, excavation continues. New campaigns are launched at the Debra L. Friedkin site. The explored areas expand to understand the spatial extent of the pre-Clovis occupation. Archaeologists track microdebris, artifact concentrations, ephemeral structures. A hearth, a napping area, the distribution of flakes can clarify the function of the site. Base camp, hunting stopover, napping workshop?
In parallel, work is drawing closer to other nearby sites, especially Gault. There too, Clovis levels have long been known, but older, pre-Clovis horizons are reported in later publications. Comparing Gault and Buttermilk Creek becomes a major issue.
Can a continuous regional sequence be reconstructed from the early pre-Clovis Paleo-Indian period to later phases? Researchers look for continuities and breaks, transfers of know-how, divergences. Interdisciplinary collaborations are strengthened. Geoarchaeologists, geomorphologists, paleoclimatologists, and dating specialists gather around Central Texas as around an open-air laboratory. They reconstruct past climates, river dynamics, and the formation of alluvial terraces. They seek to understand in what climatic and hydrological world the Buttermilk Creek groups lived. Was it a landscape of open prairies, sparse woods, rivers swollen by glacial meltwater? Or a different environment, drier, more unstable? Debates persist. Certain points remain thorny. The OSL dates from Buttermilk Creek, despite their apparent coherence, are still subject to technical questioning. Could local variations in dose rates skew the ages? The hypothesis of an imperfect resetting of the luminescence signal still haunts discussions. As long as other methods or other sites do not reinforce this chronological window, a degree of uncertainty remains. The very representativeness of the pre-Clovis assemblage is in question. Is it a local industry, a style specific to Central Texas, without a direct equivalent elsewhere? Or is it the visible tip of a broader tradition, the rest of which still lies buried, undiscovered, or misinterpreted? Without diagnostic points, without immediately recognizable forms, the assemblage is harder to link to other sites. And then, a silence weighs on the picture. No trace of human remains directly associated with the pre-Clovis level at Buttermilk Creek has yet been found. No skeleton, no bone, no ancient DNA to connect these chert nappers to known genetic lineages. Their biological identity remains a mystery. Are they the direct ancestors of later indigenous peoples? Are they related to the Anzic individuals associated with Clovis in Montana? Or do they form a cousin branch, lost in the meanders of prehistory? For some archaeologists, these areas of uncertainty call for caution. In publications and presentations, they remind us that to impose a generalized pre-Clovis model, more is still needed. Other sites, other stratigraphic sequences, just as convincing. Comparable assemblages elsewhere on the continent. They stress the danger of over-interpreting lithic industries lacking clear diagnostic forms. In the academic literature, broad recognition is taking hold. Human occupations prior to Clovis do exist in the Americas. Monteverde is one pillar. Buttermilk Creek is becoming another. Other sites fill out the picture. The strict Clovis First model is retreating, like a glacier receding before successive springs. It gives way to an older, more fragmented, more complex landscape. The Debra L. Friedkin site then occupies a singular place. It is one of the rare locations where a continuous stratigraphic sequence links, in the same soil, an abundant pre-Clovis horizon and a well-defined Clovis layer. Like a cut through time, clear, readable. For those thinking about the origin of Clovis technology, Buttermilk Creek is inescapable. It allows one to ask whether the makers of fluted points directly inherited the older techniques of the Buttermilk Creek complex, or whether they represent a reinvention, a revolution led by other groups. Faced with this new landscape, perspectives open up like multiple roads on an old map. Researchers continue the quest for comparable pre-Clovis sites with clear stratigraphies, multiple dates in other regions of North America. Dating methods are being refined. whether OSL, radiocarbon on new types of materials, or other emerging techniques. Each improvement reduces the margins of error, narrows the chronological windows. Everyone awaits the day when perhaps a site will yield, in a pre-Clovis context as solid as that of Buttermilk Creek, ancient human remains. DNA locked in a bone, in a tooth. A genetic voice that would speak of migrations and of the links between these first inhabitants and today's indigenous peoples. Then the debate will partly leave the exclusive realm of stone to embrace that of blood. And in this fabric, the name of Debra L. Friedkin, discrete on a map of Texas, now fixes itself as a marker. A reminder that scientific certainties, even the strongest, are only provisional camps set up on the bank of a river. The current of time surrounds them, wears them down, overtakes them. Then one day, a new terrace appears downstream, older, deeper, and the story of the world must once again be rewritten.